Ever since I felt conscious, I've always wanted to understand everything about the world, like why we're here, the why behind everything, why life is the way it is, why was I born where I was born and not somewhere else, in the family I was born and not some other family. And the older I get, the more I start to accept that many questions might never truly have an answer. Which is why I relate so much to Socrates saying, all that I know is that I know nothing. Because I think real wisdom begins when we recognize how limited our certainty actually is. Searching for answers, to me, it feels like something I can't escape from because I have random existential crises at night. So I want to canalize that energy or curiosity by exploring the world as much as I can through ideas, people, history, art, and the different ways humans try to make sense of life. And I will be documenting this journey in that journal. Maybe we'll never fully understand the world and the meaning of life, but I still think there's something beautiful about trying. You know that saying? Shoot for the moon and you might land among the stars. Well, if you're like me and curious, you're very welcome aboard a glimpse of the world. Quick disclaimer, I am not a philosopher or a historian. I'm just a random girl with internet access, a journal, and a head full of ideas. So if I make mistakes, feel free to correct me in the comments. I would actually love for this space to become something more collaborative because I would love to learn from other people's perspective too. Now, today, the question or the idea I wanted to talk about is, how do we know what's real or not? What is identity when the pursuit is endless? I thought there was no better figure to start a glimpse of the world than Socrates for two reasons. One, I find his search for truth and authenticity relatable. And two, I feel like you can't really talk about ideas and philosophy without mentioning Socrates. So, the first part of this video, I'm gonna talk about Socrates. Who was Socrates? Socrates was born in 470 BC in Athens, which in the 5th century was basically the golden age. Democracy was developing, art, architecture, philosophy as well. Athens was one of the cultural centers of ancient Greece. But underneath that beauty, there was also instability, wars, political tensions, social anxiety. Socrates, despite all the quotes attributed to him, actually never wrote anything. Everything we know about him mostly come from others like Plato, his student, and other people like Xenophon. I think it's funny because writing something suggests that it's a complete thought, which means you have found what you were trying to express. And the fact that Socrates never wrote anything means that he truly lived according to his morals. For him, the search of truth will never end. Which leads me to the Socratic method. In this method, he emphasized dialectical reasoning and critical questioning. His method encouraged students to examine their own beliefs and seek universal definitions of concepts like justice, beauty, morals, goodness. The Socratic dialogue was a tool for moral and intellectual development. Basically, if someone was confident about a claim, Socrates will start questioning them until they get to the point where the answers are no longer as confident and reveal the degree of our own ignorance. For example, let's say free will, and let's say that I argue that I have free will. Okay? When I actually think about free will, I think of it as the ability to do things, to make decisions solely based on your own volition. Like there's no influence whatsoever from anything outside of you. For the sake of the example, I'm a devoted Christian. I'm putting my faith in doubt and I'm asking myself, why am I Christian? And I'm like, because I believe this and that. Why do I believe this and that? Because I've been told this and that by my parents, or I was born in that religion. Okay? Then why do they believe what they believe? Because they've been told the same thing. So you get the idea. At some point in my questioning, I've hit a wall where I'm like, did I choose to believe, or did I even have a choice, if that makes sense? That's what I meant to say. So at the end of the questioning, I'm hitting a wall where I'm realizing that maybe I don't have a free will. Let's say if I was born in Morocco, I wouldn't be Christian. I would probably be like a devoted Muslim wearing hijab and saying surats. So you get the idea. But that still doesn't answer the questions. Which leads me to the second part of my video, where I'm going to talk about know thyself. This is supposed to mean know thyself, but it's in Greek, and I'm not sure if it's upside down or not. And I guess I'm just going to stick it and hope for the best. I think it doesn't fully answer the questions, which makes sense because the essence of the Socratic method is the endless questioning. But know thyself is often attributed to Socrates, but I think the sentence is originally from the temple of Apollo at Delphi. Socrates adopted it and made it deeper. He viewed self-knowledge as inseparable from morality. To him, by understanding oneself, a person can align actions with what is truly yours. This process requires dialogue and reflection. I'd also add honesty and humility. It really can be a humbling experience. I've tried it through exposing myself to different perspectives, journaling, or even literally talking to myself. And I was talking to one of my close friends one day, and I asked him, if I'm not my education, my social status, my desires, my financial status, my beliefs of religion, then who am I? And to this day, I still feel that way. But I think all those things shape our experience of life. I feel like if you start asking yourself, who are you? Why do you act the way you do? Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you think the way you think? I feel like, at least in my case, I get to a point where I realize I'm nothing. I realize that I'm merely an echo of all the people I've been around, all the books I've read, all the movies I watched, all the experience, I have had. But at the core, I just am. I just exist. And as much as I find it freeing in the sense that if I'm nothing, I can become anything I want. But it's a double-edged sword because everything feels meaningless and pointless. And maybe we do need a self-identity to keep on living. But I feel like talking about the meaning of life now is gonna be long, so I'm gonna save that for another video maybe. But I still feel the same way even today. For Socrates, he viewed self-knowledge as an ongoing journey rather than a fixed state. For him, it demands continuous self-examination and moral effort, which I think is kind of true though. Self-knowledge isn't a constant, it's a process that helps you navigate through life without feeling lost. Because maybe what seemed true and acceptable to me when I was 14 no longer feel the same at 24. By the way, I really enjoy journaling, which is why I'm doing this whole thing. But I think it's a great practice to pick up to in a self-learning journey. And I've designed two journals that I'm selling on Amazon KDP. If you're interested, you can always check them out. I'm gonna put the link in the description. So feel free to check them out if you're interested. So back to what I was saying. Maybe there's no way to know for sure what's true or not, what's real or not, and maybe there's no way to even fully know yourself. You can only ask questions, but there's no guaranteed answer. But I think it's nice to realize that and leave space for wonder and open our mind to different possibilities. I'd rather doubt something true than to be confident in something totally false. Being so sure about something closes your mind to any type of reflection. You won't be able to change or accept change because it will likely shake your whole identity. That confidence and ignorance sometimes too is the leading cause of the death of so many great people from the past, like Galileo. There's many examples, but Socrates too, who was accused of impiety and corrupting the youth of Athens. He just had a different perspective on things that were considered absolute truth, like religions, cosmos, politics. The society felt threatened by Socrates, and eventually he was sentenced to death by poisoning. I think as people, we have a natural tendency to be stuck in our own ways. It's easier, it's comfortable, less scary. But authenticity and wisdom can only grow outside of that comfort. I feel like you can only get a glimpse of your own self when you start asking yourself questions that might be uncomfortable. Now, I've said all this, but at the end of the day, I'm not even sure if it matters. Maybe it's my own way of being stuck in my own way. Maybe it was the same for Socrates, who had rather died than abandoning his morals. Well, that's it for today's video. So thank you for watching the video and spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. So yeah, bye.